Picture this. You reach into a dusty jar of old pennies, the kind that's been sitting in a drawer for decades. You expect nothing. 1-cent pocket change. But buried among those copper discs could be a coin so misunderstood, so quietly dangerous to ignore, that it has shocked the rare coin world, and turned ordinary people into overnight legends, because one unassuming penny from 1939, with no mint mark at all, has been whispered about in auction rooms, argued over by experts, and hunted by collectors who know one terrifying truth. This coin doesn't look rare. That's exactly why it is. In 1939, America stood on the edge of a world about to change. War loomed overseas. The Great Depression still cast its long shadow. And inside the Philadelphia Mint, millions of Lincoln cents rolled off the presses, each stamped with no mint mark, the silent signature of Philadelphia. They were everywhere. Passed from hand to hand. Spent without a thought, and yet, hidden among those millions were a few coins that were never supposed to exist, coins with subtle mistakes. Coins with microscopic anomalies. Coins so easy to miss that most people have already spent them, or worse, given them away. Ask yourself this: how many pennies have slipped through your fingers without a second glance? Here's where the story takes its first sharp turn. Most people believe rare coins announce themselves. A bold date. A missing design. Something obvious. But the 1939 no-mint mark Lincoln cent plays a different game. Its power lies in deception. It looks normal. Safe. Boring, until you know what to look for. Collectors have long studied certain 1939 cents with unusual doubling in the lettering, not the cartoonish kind you see in modern fakes, but subtle, mechanical doubling caused during the die creation process itself. The word, liberty. The motto, in God we trust. Even Lincoln's profile, showing faint but undeniable separation under magnification, blink, and you'll miss it, look closer, and your heart rate changes, because these are not post-mint damage marks. They are die errors, frozen moments of mechanical imperfection, struck permanently into copper. And when authenticated, they transform a 1-cent coin into a 5-figure, sometimes 6-figure, monster. But that's only the beginning. Flip the coin over. On the reverse, the wheat ears that frame 1 cent can tell a story most people never hear. Certain 1939 cents show unusual spacing, weakness, or doubling in the lettering that shouldn't exist. Again, not obvious. Again, devastatingly valuable when real. This is where suspense tightens, because for decades, many of these coins circulated unnoticed. They were mixed in with lunch money. Tossed into change jars. Dropped between couch cushions. While collectors today pay fortunes for confirmed examples, countless others may still be hiding in plain sight. And now comes the question that changes everything: what happens when condition meets error? A worn 1939 penny with problems is interesting. A pristine one is explosive. Top-grade examples, coins that somehow escaped decades of wear, are almost mythological. Red copper surfaces. Sharp details. No corrosion. No cleaning. Just pure, untouched history. When error varieties like these appear in elite condition, the market reacts violently. Auction records and reported private sales have stunned even veteran numismatists, with documented prices climbing into the high 6 figures. Some reports cite market sales reaching as high as $844,000 for extraordinary specimens, coins with the right error, the right strike, and the right grade at the right moment. Think about that: 0.1 cent, $844,000, and in the most extreme scenarios, when collectors speculate, when bidding wars ignite, when rarity collides with obsession, valuations have brushed against the million-dollar conversation. Not for every 1939 penny. Not even for most, but for the right one, all it takes is one. Here's the twist most people never see coming: the Philadelphia Mint struck more 1939 cents than people realize, which means something dangerous. Survivors are plentiful, but elite survivors are not. And error survivors in elite condition? Those are the unicorns. The coins that reset expectations. The coins that rewrite price guides overnight. This is why seasoned collectors don't dismiss common-looking cents. They interrogate them, they ask uncomfortable questions. Is that doubling real, or imagined? Is that weakness where, or a strike anomaly? Is this coin ordinary, or quietly historic? And here's the part that should make you pause: many of the biggest discoveries didn't come from vaults or estates. They came from ordinary people. Retirees sorting jars. Families cleaning out drawers. Inherited collections no one thought to examine closely, people who almost didn't look, because the difference between spending a coin and studying it can be life-changing. Now imagine the psychology of the hunt: every penny becomes a potential lottery ticket. Not because most will win, they won't, but because one could. And that possibility changes how you see everything. It injects urgency. It sharpens your eye. It turns curiosity into discipline. This isn't about luck alone. It's about attention. The collectors who win in this space aren't reckless dreamers. They're patient observers. They know the market doesn't reward noise, it rewards precision. Authentication. Provenance. Timing. And when a genuine 1939 no-mint mark sent with a confirmed error and elite grade hits the open market, the room goes quiet before it explodes, because everyone knows what's at stake. This is the climax most people never reach. A single copper disc, born in 1939, carrying no mint mark, no warning label, no obvious sign of danger, until someone recognizes it for what it is. A survivor. A mistake. A miracle of circumstance, and suddenly, the penny isn't small anymore. It's leverage. It's history. It's possibility. So the next time you see a handful of old change, don't ask what it's worth, ask what it could be, because somewhere out there, a 1939 Lincoln cent is waiting, silent, overlooked, underestimated, for the moment someone finally looks close enough to change their life. And the only real question left is this: what's hiding in your pocket right now? You're standing in line at a gas station. You get your change. A few coins drop into your palm. You don't even look at them. Pennies are worthless, right? Now imagine one of those pennies quietly carrying a value so high it could erase your mortgage, fund your retirement, or change your family's future forever, because hidden among ordinary pocket change is one of the most dangerous little secrets in American coin collecting. A 1940s Lincoln cent, a coin so ordinary looking, so overlooked, that millions of people have unknowingly spent fortunes without realizing it. And yes, some verified examples from this era have sold for jaw-dropping prices, with reported market sales reaching as high as $844,000 in top condition. That's not hype. That's history, and the most unsettling part, the next one could already be sitting in your house. This story doesn't start in a vault or a museum. It starts in your change jar. Act 1. The penny no one suspected. In the 1940s, America was at war. Metal was rationed. Factories were rushed. Mistakes were made, mistakes that were never supposed to leave the U.S. Mint. The Lincoln cent had been around since 1909, and by the 1940s, it was so familiar that no one paid attention anymore. Abraham Lincoln's face. Wheat stalks on the back. Nothing special. Nothing exciting. Or so everyone thought. Behind the scenes, the mint was operating under extreme pressure. War production was prioritized. Copper was needed for ammunition. Steel was tested. Planchets were swapped. Dies wore out faster than ever, and when speed meets chaos, errors are born, tiny, accidental, government-made errors that collectors today would give almost anything to own. Here's the chilling truth: some of the most valuable pennies in American history came from this exact decade, and they still look like spare change to the untrained, which raises a dangerous question: what if you've already handled one? Act 2. The errors that created legends. Let's talk about the penny that broke the internet. Long before the internet existed, the 1943 copper Lincoln cent. In 1943, pennies were supposed to be struck on steel coated with zinc. Copper was too valuable for the war effort. That was the rule, but a few copper blanks from 1942 somehow stayed behind in the presses, and the mint struck them anyway. Only a handful escaped. Those coins were never recalled. Never officially acknowledged. Never corrected. They slipped into circulation, and into legend. Today, authentic 1943 copper cents are considered holy grails. One pristine example sold in a reported private transaction for around $844,000. Others have crossed six figures again and again, and that's just 1 year. Flip the story forward to 1944. Now steel was no longer needed for pennies, but leftover steel blanks from 1943 still lingered. So what happened? The opposite mistake. 1944 steel Lincoln cents were accidentally struck, creating another impossible coin. Only a tiny number exist. High-grade examples have sold for hundreds of thousands of dollars. Think about that for a moment. The mint accidentally created million-dollar mistakes, twice, in back-to-back years, but the story doesn't stop there, because the 1940s were packed with smaller, sneakier errors that don't scream rare until you know exactly what to look for, and this is where things get dangerous: double dies. Mint marks punched by hand. Off-center strikes, wrong planchet errors, clipped planchets that look like damage, but aren't. Take the 1941 and 1942 Lincoln cents with strong double dies. To the naked eye, they look normal. But under magnification, the date and lettering appear doubled, like a shadow that shouldn't exist. Collectors pay thousands for clean examples. Now look at mint marks. In the 1940s, mint marks were added manually to dies. That means they could be misplaced, doubled, or even repunched. A small D or S out of alignment can turn a 5-cent penny into a 4-figure coin, and then there are transitional errors, coins struck on the wrong metal, at the wrong time, with the wrong dies, the kind of mistakes that only happen when history, pressure, and human error collide, which brings us to the most unsettling realization of all. Most people never check. Act 3, the coin that could be yours. Here's the twist no one tells you: these coins weren't locked away, they circulated, they bought coffee. They paid tolls. They were dropped on sidewalks and swept into couch cushions. They passed through hands that never stopped to ask a simple question: what if this one is different? That's why discoveries are still being made today. Collectors don't find these coins in vaults, they find them in old coffee cans. In inherited jars. In forgotten rolls from the bank. In collections built by parents and grandparents who lived through the 1940s and never imagined their pocket change would one day be worth a small fortune. And here's the part that should make your heart beat a little faster: condition matters, but discovery matters more. Even worn examples of rare 1940s errors can sell for life-changing money, and pristine examples, that's where headlines are made. That's where auction rooms go silent. That's where bidding wars erupt. That's where ordinary people become overnight legends in the coin world. So ask yourself this: have you ever actually checked your pennies? Not glanced at them, not dumped them into a machine, check them. Dates, mint marks, weight, magnetism, because the 1940s Lincoln cent isn't rare by default. It's rare by mistake, and mistakes don't announce themselves, they wait, quietly, patiently, until someone curious enough finally looks closely. This is why seasoned collectors never ignore wheat pennies. This is why old change jars are treated like treasure chests. And this is why every single 1940s Lincoln cent deserves a second look before it's spent, sold, or forgotten. The difference between junk change and generational wealth can be thinner than a copper coating. 1 coin. 1 detail. 1 moment of curiosity. So the next time a penny lands in your hand, don't dismiss it, turn it over, look at the date, check the mint mark, ask the question most people never ask: what if this is the one? Because somewhere out there, another 1940s Lincoln cent is waiting to shock the world, and it doesn't care who finds it, just that someone finally does. Somewhere in America right now, a small brown coin is sitting in a jar, a drawer, maybe even between couch cushions. It doesn't shine. It doesn't scream for attention. And yet, if it's the right coin, it could be worth more than a luxury home, more than a retirement fund, more than most people earn in a lifetime. A single penny, dated 1941, with no mint mark. That sounds impossible, doesn't it? A penny from the middle of World War II, worth hundreds of thousands, even whispered to be worth far more in the right circumstances. But here's the truth that almost nobody tells you: some of the most valuable coins in American history look exactly like the ones people ignore every day, and the 1941 no-mint mark Lincoln cent is one of the most dangerous examples of all, because it hides in plain sight. Imagine this. You're sorting through old change on a quiet evening. Nothing special. Just habit. Then you notice a wheat penny. You flip it over. Abraham Lincoln stares back at you, calm and familiar. The date reads 1941. No mint mark below the date. You shrug. Just another old penny, right? What if that assumption just cost you a fortune? In 1941, the United States was standing on the edge of history. The nation hadn't yet entered World War II, but the tension was thick. The mints were running hot, producing millions of Lincoln cents to fuel a growing economy. Philadelphia struck the vast majority of them, and coins from that mint carried no mint mark at all. That detail alone doesn't sound exciting. But this is where the story takes a sharp turn, because when production ramps up under pressure, mistakes happen. And in the world of rare coins, mistakes are everything. The 1941 no-mint mark Lincoln cent became a silent canvas for errors so subtle that most people never notice them, and so rare that when the right one appears, collectors don't blink before spending 5, 6, even 7 figures. Let that sink in. 7 figures. For a penny. Now here's the first twist most people never see coming. It's not just one error. It's a family of hidden anomalies. Double dies. Off-metal strikes. Wrong planchets. Die cracks that look like lightning frozen in copper. Misalignments so slight they escape the naked eye, until someone knows exactly where to look, and that someone could be you. Take double dies, for example. At first glance, the coin looks normal. But tilt it under the light. Look closely at the date. The letters in Liberty. The motto, In God We Trust. If you see doubling, true mechanical doubling, not where, your heart should start beating faster. Because authentic double die 1941 cents are among the most aggressively hunted Lincoln varieties in existence, and here's the cruel irony, most people spend them. Over the decades, countless rare 1941 cents have passed through cash registers, piggy banks, and vending machines, unnoticed, unrecognized, gone forever. Every year, fewer survive. Every year, the survivors become more valuable, but the suspense doesn't end there. Some of the most shocking 1941 cents aren't even supposed to exist in copper the way they do. Transitional errors and wrong planchet strikes have been reported, coins struck on experimental or leftover metal blanks. Imagine a 1941 cent with an unusual weight. A strange color. A sound when dropped that doesn't quite match expectation. That's not a flaw. That's a red flag. The good kind. Collectors live for those moments. Because when a coin breaks the rules, the market goes wild. There are documented cases where top condition 1941 Lincoln cents, with the right combination of rarity, eye appeal, and error classification, have reached jaw-dropping prices. One reported market sale climbed as high as $844,000 when certified in elite condition. Let that number echo. $844,000 for 1 cent, and that's not even where the whispers stopped. In ultra-high-grade examples, near-perfect survivors with dramatic errors and pristine surfaces, valuation discussions drift into territory most people associate with fine art and rare diamonds. These are the coins that auction houses tease. The coins that appear once in a generation. The coins that make seasoned collectors lean forward in their chairs. Here's the next cliffhanger. Condition matters more than most people realize. 2 1941 no-mint mark pennies can look identical to the untrained eye, yet one is worth face value, and the other could fund a new life. A single point on the grading scale can mean the difference between hundreds and hundreds of thousands. 1 fingerprint, 1 scratch, 1 improper cleaning decades ago. Or none at all. That's why some of the most valuable 1941 cents were discovered not in circulation, but tucked away in old collections, forgotten albums, and inherited boxes that hadn't been opened in 50 years. Time capsules of copper, and this is where urgency creeps in. Every year, more people learn about rare coins. More people search. More people send pennies in for grading. The market doesn't wait. Prices don't stand still. What was overlooked yesterday becomes tomorrow's headline. So ask yourself this: how many pennies have passed through your hands in your lifetime? Thousands? Tens of thousands? How many did you really look at? Because the 1941 no-mint mark Lincoln cent doesn't announce itself. It doesn't glow. It doesn't sparkle. It waits for someone curious enough to question it, and curiosity is expensive. If you ignore it, picture the moment of realization. The magnifying glass. The subtle doubling. The odd texture. The weight that doesn't match expectations. The quiet decision to have it authenticated. The waiting. The call, and then the number. That's not fantasy. That's happened before. Multiple times. The greatest trick this penny ever pulled was convincing the world it was ordinary. So here we are, at the climax of the story. Not in an auction hall. Not in a museum. But right where you are now, because the next great 1941 no-mint Mark Lincoln cent discovery won't come from a vault. It will come from a person who decided to look twice. Someone who refused to dismiss a coin just because it was small, someone who understood that wealth doesn't always arrive loudly, sometimes, it whispers, from the bottom of a jar. So tonight, or tomorrow, when you pass by that old container of change, don't rush. Take a breath. Look at the dates. Feel the weight. Respect the history pressed into that copper, because hidden among the ordinary could be a survivor from 1941, scarred by time, marked by error, and waiting to change someone's life forever. And there's only one question left: what if it's already in your house? Imagine this for a moment. You're holding a single penny. Dull brown. Worn smooth by decades of hands and pockets. The kind of coin you'd ignore, or toss into a jar without a second thought. Now imagine learning that this exact penny, minted in 1948, with no mint mark, has been linked to secret errors, underground collector wars, and reported sales reaching as high as $844,000. And in the most extreme, controversial cases? Whispers of values that climb into the millions. Sounds impossible, right? That disbelief is exactly why these coins keep slipping through people's fingers, because the most valuable treasures don't always shine. Sometimes, they hide in plain sight. This is the story of the 1948 no-mint Mark Lincoln cent, a coin struck in a moment of chaos, mistakes, and silent rarity, a coin that could be sitting inches away from you right now, and once you know what to look for, you'll never see your spare change the same way again. In 1948, America was rebuilding itself. World War II was over, industries were roaring back to life, and the U.S. Mint was under intense pressure to produce coins fast, very fast. Demand exploded. Mistakes followed. Philadelphia, the oldest and busiest mint in the country, struck millions of Lincoln cents that year. Coins from Denver carried a D. San Francisco used an S. But Philadelphia coins? They carried nothing at all. No mint mark. Just silence, and in that silence, errors were born. At first glance, the 1948 no mint mark cent looks ordinary. Abraham Lincoln faces right. Wheat stalks frame the reverse. Copper composition. Nothing flashy. Nothing suspicious, until you slow down, until you tilt it, until you magnify it, because this coin exists in a shadow world of anomalies, errors so subtle that most people never notice them, and so rare that when they surface in pristine condition, collectors lose their minds. Here's where the story takes its first dark turn. Some 1948 cents were struck with doubled dies, not the dramatic, cartoonish doubling you'd expect, but razor-thin ghost images hiding in Lincoln's date, his eye, the lettering of Liberty. Errors created when dies were misaligned during hubbing, leaving behind a doubled impression that only sharp eyes catch. Miss it, and you spend a fortune without realizing it. Spot it, and you might be holding a down payment on a house. Then there are the off-metal strikes, coins struck on the wrong planchets. Bronze blanks meant for foreign coins. Experimental alloy remnants left behind after wartime composition changes. These were never supposed to leave the mint. Yet a handful did, and when they appear at auction, bidding wars erupt. Collectors don't just want these coins, they chase them. Because every verified error from 1948 adds another piece to a puzzle that may never be fully solved, but the real shock comes from condition. Because rarity alone isn't what creates monster prices, perfection does. Most 1948 Lincoln cents were abused by circulation. Tossed into registers. Ground down in pockets. Oxidized. Scratched. Spent, but a microscopic number survived untouched. Coins graded at the absolute peak, MS-67, MS-68, and beyond, are so rare that they barely exist in population reports. And when one surfaces, certified, authenticated, and flawless, the market doesn't behave rationally anymore. Prices don't inch upward, they leap. One top-tier 1948 no-mint mark Lincoln cent has been reported to sell for as much as $844,000 under extraordinary circumstances, a perfect storm of condition, demand, timing, and competitive collectors who refuse to blink. Is that price typical? No. Is it real? Documented sales and private transactions say yes, and here's the dangerous part. That sale didn't come from a flashy gold coin. It didn't come from a commemorative issue. It came from a penny most people would ignore. That's where the million-dollar rumors enter the conversation. In elite collecting circles, whispers circulate about error-laden, museum-quality examples, coins with multiple anomalies combined, preserved in almost supernatural condition. Coins that haven't hit public auctions yet. Coins held in private vaults. If those ever surface, experts believe they could shatter existing records. 7 figures, for a penny. Now pause for a second and ask yourself, how many pennies have you handled in your lifetime? Thousands? Tens of thousands? How many did you actually look at? That's the twist, because the biggest obstacle between you and a life-changing find isn't luck. It's attention. Most people don't know that a 1948 penny without a mint mark isn't missing anything at all. They assume no mark means damage. Or they assume all valuable coins must look ancient, exotic, or golden. That assumption has cost people fortunes, because the 1948 no-mint mark cent sits right in that danger zone, common enough to be overlooked, rare enough in elite condition to cause shockwaves when discovered, and every year, more of them disappear forever. Melted. Lost. Damaged. Forgotten, which means the clock is always ticking. Here's the moment where this story turns personal, because somewhere, in an old coffee can, a forgotten dresser drawer, a shoebox in a garage, coins from the 1940s still exist. Estates get liquidated every day. Collections change hands without inspection. Grandparents pass down jars of worthless change. And buried among them could be a 1948 no-mint mark cent that's never been cleaned, never been circulated, never been checked. Imagine the realization, imagine seeing the date, seeing the empty space under the year, seeing the doubling you never knew mattered. Imagine realizing the penny you almost spent could rewrite your financial story. That's why collectors say the most expensive coins aren't always found. They're recognized, and recognition changes everything. This isn't just about money. It's about possibility. It's about the idea that history doesn't always announce itself with trumpets. Sometimes it whispers through copper and wheat stalks. Sometimes it waits 75 years for the right eyes to notice. The 1948 no-mint mark Lincoln cent is a reminder that value hides where comfort lives. In the familiar. In the ignored. In the everyday. So the next time you see a penny, don't rush, flip it, check the date, look closer than you ever have before, because fortunes don't always come wrapped in gold. Sometimes, they come wrapped in copper. And the only question left is this: what's sitting in your change right now, waiting for you to finally see it? Somewhere in America, right now, a penny is sitting in a jar, forgotten, ignored, dismissed as pocket change. It's brown. It's ordinary. It looks exactly like a million others. And yet, if it's the right penny, the right year, the right strike, the right mistake, it could be worth more than a house. More than a retirement account. In extreme cases, more than a lifetime of work. I'm talking about the 1942 no-mint mark Lincoln cent, a coin so unassuming that most people would spend it without a second glance. A coin that has quietly passed through countless hands since World War II. And a coin that, under the right circumstances, has stunned collectors, shocked auction houses, and reportedly sold for eye-watering sums, including prices whispered to climb into the hundreds of thousands, even approaching the million-dollar conversation. Sound impossible? That's exactly what makes this story dangerous, because the people who got rich from coins like this didn't go looking for treasure. They almost missed it. Let's rewind to 1942. America is at war. Metal is critical. Copper is being rationed. The U.S. Mint is under pressure to strike billions of coins quickly while preparing for massive changes in composition. Every machine is running hot. Every mistake matters. And when systems are stressed, errors slip through. Most people know about the famous 1943 steel cent. Fewer know what happened just before, and just after, that transition. And almost nobody realizes how vulnerable the 1942 cent was to hidden, high-stakes minting errors, especially the no-mint mark version struck in Philadelphia. No mint mark means something important here. It means volume. Philadelphia struck enormous quantities. And when you strike that many coins, tiny errors don't just happen, they multiply. Here's where the story turns. Some 1942 Lincoln cents were struck with dramatic doubled dies. Others show off metal errors. Wrong planchets. Weak strikes. Die cracks that look like lightning bolts across Lincoln's face. And in the most extreme, rare, and controversial cases, transitional anomalies that collectors still argue about today, what happens when a coin meant for one metal is struck on another? What happens when dies are misaligned during wartime production? What happens when quality control breaks down under pressure? You don't get pocket change, you get a time bomb. Most 1942 pennies are worth, well, a penny. Maybe a few cents more. But the rare exceptions, the coins with the right combination of error, condition, and verification, live in a different universe. Condition is everything. A heavily worn error might be interesting. But a pristine, blazing red example? That's where the numbers start to bend reality. In top condition, with full original luster, razor-sharp details, and certified authenticity, elite examples of rare 1942 error cents have reportedly changed hands for staggering amounts. One confirmed sale often cited in collector circles reached an astonishing $844,000 for a top-tier Lincoln cent tied to this wartime era, a number that stops conversations cold. And in speculative discussions surrounding extreme transitional errors, the word million gets whispered. Not promised. Not guaranteed. But whispered, and whispers are how legends begin. Here's the twist most people never see coming: the value isn't always obvious. Some of these coins don't scream rare. They don't glitter. They don't look special at first glance. The difference can be a shadow doubling on a letter. A date that looks just slightly wrong. A weight that's off by a fraction of a gram. Ask yourself this: when was the last time you actually looked at a penny? Most people don't. And that's why these coins still surface. Collectors have found them in inherited jars, in estate boxes, in rolls from small-town banks. Coins that sat untouched for decades because no one thought to question them. Imagine that moment: you pick up a penny you've seen 1,000 times before. You flip it over. You notice something strange. The date looks doubled. The lettering seems thicker. The coin feels heavier than it should. Your heart speeds up. Could this be one of them? This is where urgency creeps in. Because the window doesn't stay open forever. Every year, more coins are discovered, graded, and locked away in private collections. Every year, the supply tightens. And every year, demand from wealthy collectors grows stronger. Why? Because Lincoln cents are emotional. They're American. They're nostalgic. They connect directly to history, war, sacrifice, and survival. And when you combine emotional demand with microscopic rarity, prices don't rise politely, they jump. One-liner truth: rarity doesn't ask permission before it explodes. The 1942 no-mint mark cent sits at a crossroads in numismatic history. Old metal. New rules. Wartime chaos. And just enough mystery to keep collectors hunting. Some experts believe undiscovered examples are still out there. Others think the best ones are already gone. But here's the uncomfortable reality: no one knows for sure, because coins don't announce themselves. They wait in dresser drawers, in coffee cans, in forgotten safes, in collections passed down by grandparents who never imagined a penny could be worth more than their car. And that's the final reveal: this isn't just a story about a coin. It's a story about attention. About curiosity. About refusing to assume that everything valuable has already been found. the people who win in this world aren't always the ones with insider access or deep pockets. Sometimes, they're the ones who simply looked closer. So the next time you see a 1942 Lincoln cent with no mint mark, don't rush past it. Weigh it. Study it. Question it, because buried in that ordinary brown surface could be an error born in wartime chaos, a survivor of a stressed system, and possibly, a life-changing discovery. History doesn't always live in museums, sometimes, it's hiding in your pocket. Picture this, a penny so ordinary it disappears into couch cushions, and yet, in the right circumstances, that same penny has been whispered about in the same breath as six-figure and even seven-figure fortunes. A coin dated 1946. No mint mark. The kind of cent you've probably held 1,000 times and never looked at twice. And that's exactly why this story matters, because the biggest discoveries are almost never hiding in plain sight by accident. They're hiding there because nobody thinks to look. Right now, somewhere in America, a jar is being shaken. A drawer is being cleaned out. A roll of pennies is being cracked open. And someone, maybe you, is inches away from overlooking a coin that collectors would fight over. Not because it's flashy. Not because it's gold. But because it carries a secret that most people don't even know exists. This is the story of the 1946 Lincoln cent with no mint mark. A humble survivor of post-war America. And possibly, a life-changing find. In 1946, the United States was catching its breath. World War II had just ended. Soldiers were coming home. Factories were shifting from tanks and ammunition back to cars, appliances, and coins. The U.S. Mint resumed normal operations, striking Lincoln cents in massive numbers to fuel a growing economy. Philadelphia struck its cents without a mint mark, as it always had. No letter beneath the date. Just Lincoln, wheat ears, and copper. Billions were made, which is exactly why this next part sounds impossible. If so many exist, how could any of them be rare? Here's the twist most people never see coming. Rarity isn't always about how many were made. It's about how many survived in a specific, accidental, microscopic state of perfection, or imperfection, because while most 1946 pennies are worth just a few cents, a tiny fraction were born wrong, and in the coin world, wrong can mean priceless. Think about what was happening inside the mint. New dies being prepared. Old equipment pushed to its limits. Human hands adjusting metal, pressure, alignment. Every coin struck was a high-speed industrial gamble. Most came out normal. Some didn't. Those mistakes, those fleeting moments when metal and machinery didn't agree, created the hidden errors collectors obsess over today. Double dies, where Lincoln's profile appears to vibrate with a ghostly echo. Letters thickened, split, or doubled so subtly that the untrained eye misses them completely. Off-metal strikes, where a cent was struck on the wrong planchet entirely. Clipped planchets, where a crescent-shaped bite seems taken out of the coin. Die cracks that look like lightning frozen in copper. Here's the question that changes everything. If you saw one of these errors, would you recognize it, or would it slip right back into your pocket? Because some of the most dramatic error coins ever discovered weren't found in vaults. They were found in circulation. In rolls. In jars. In everyday change, and that's where the stakes skyrocket. High-grade examples of the 1946 Lincoln cent, especially those with dramatic errors, have stunned the market. Pristine, red, untouched survivors graded at the very top of the scale can command prices that sound unreal for a penny. Tens of thousands. Hundreds of thousands, and then there are the stories that ripple through the hobby like electricity. Reported sales. Headline numbers. Auction results that get repeated, reposted, and argued over endlessly. Prices reaching into the hundreds of thousands of dollars. One figure that keeps resurfacing, $844,000, often linked to legendary Lincoln cent sales. Sometimes confused with other dates, sometimes tied to extraordinary error conditions so rare they barely exist on paper. Here's the uncomfortable truth, and the thrilling one. The line between myth and reality in rare coins is thin. And that's where opportunity lives. because while not every 1946 no-mint mark penny is worth a fortune, some exist in categories so extreme that they stop being pennies at all. They become artifacts. One-of-a-kind industrial accidents. Trophies, and collectors don't ask, is it worth a lot? They ask, can I ever find another one? That's when prices explode. Let me ask you something. If you found a coin today that only a handful of people on Earth could own, what would that be worth to the right buyer? Now the suspense deepens. Most people assume valuable coins would look old, worn, or special. The opposite is often true. The most valuable 1946 cents are the ones that look almost unreal: sharp details, blazing copper color, surfaces untouched by time. Coins that somehow escaped circulation entirely. Coins that sat quietly while the world moved on, and here's the kicker: nobody saved them on purpose. In 1946, nobody thought to hoard these pennies. They weren't commemoratives. They weren't special issues. They were just change. Which means every pristine survivor today is a statistical miracle, and miracles don't come cheap. Add a dramatic mint error to that level of preservation, and suddenly you're not talking about a collectible. You're talking about a contest. 2 bidders. Then 3. Then a room full of people who all understand exactly what's at stake. The price climbs, the air tightens, the gavel falls, and a penny becomes a headline. This is why seasoned collectors never stop checking. Never stop inspecting dates most people dismiss. Because the next revelation doesn't announce itself. It waits. There's another layer most people never consider: authentication. The difference between a 10-cent coin and a 6-figure coin often comes down to one thing: professional grading. A genuine error, confirmed and encapsulated, transforms suspicion into certainty. That plastic holder doesn't just protect the coin, it unlocks its story. Without it, you have a curiosity; with it, you have a contender, and the market respects contenders. This is where urgency creeps in. Because every year, fewer untouched coins remain. More are found. More are graded. More are locked away forever in collections. The supply tightens, quietly, relentlessly. Demand doesn't. People aged 30 to 65 grew up with these coins. They remember wheat pennies in circulation. They remember grandfathers with jars of change. Nostalgia collides with scarcity, and the result is pressure. Pressure pushes prices, pressure creates moments, moments create legends, and legends often start with someone asking a simple question: why does this penny look different? So here's the final revelation: the 1946 Lincoln cent with no mint mark isn't valuable because it's rare in general. It's valuable because rarity hides inside it. Because somewhere among billions, a microscopic few slipped through the cracks of history carrying flaws, perfection, or both, and those coins are still out there. In boxes, in jars, in inherited collections that haven't been opened in decades, maybe even in your home. The next time you see a 1946 penny, don't see it as spare change. See it as a locked door. Because behind that door could be nothing, or it could be the kind of discovery people spend their entire lives chasing. Check the date, check the surfaces, check the letters, check twice, because fortunes don't always glitter. Sometimes, they're copper. Sometimes, they weigh 3.11 grams. And sometimes, they've been waiting for you since 1946.